Internet is everywhere. It's a requirement of our life now. I'm a sophomore in high school. I have 11 classes. Most of the time I have to do between 3 to 4 essays or 2 projects every night. My teacher requires everything to be online. Every year my work is required online, more and more worksheets at Google Classroom, Google Drive, and Google Docs that I have to turn in. But it's kind of hard now because I currently don't have internet access at home and my parents don't have enough money to pay for it. We just have one company around this area and it's really expensive, so I try my best to get internet in other ways. I have to stay after school, go to a library, public library, to do my essays. So it's really hard for me to do my work because I have to look for a computer, wait for it, and then there's a time limit because there's a lot of people going over there to use a computer to do their work. I want to go to college. I want to be a surgeon to treat people with cancer. I'm going to be the first person in the family who goes to college. Most of my friends don't have internet at home because they can't afford it either. It's really funny for me and my friends because we see tech companies all around us in San Francisco and then we can't afford internet. We will all be better students if we had internet at home.
Mi esposo y yo trabajamos tiempo completo. Tengo el bill de la renta, el teléfono, gas, puente. Son tantas cosas que hay que ver antes. Lastimosamente hasta el día de hoy no hemos podido tenerlo. En esta área solo tenemos una opción de compra de internet. Es una necesidad más básica en el hogar. Antes lo miraba uno como lujo, ahora ya no. La educación se basa en la tecnología, en el internet. Y esa es la razón por que las compañías se aprovechan de nosotros, pues porque saben que necesitamos internet en casa por nuestros hijos. El no tener internet le daría de ventaja bastante en la escuela a mi hija. Ella ya está preparándose para lo que es la universidad. Aplicaciones no las podemos hacer porque es por internet.
About 60 million people who live in the United States do not have high-speed internet at home. The majority of those people cite expense as the reason for why they don't have internet at home. Those people who are without internet access at home are predominantly disabled, minorities, under-resourced, underprivileged. They're the people who are just being left behind in all other aspects of their lives here in the United States. And as most people know, if you don't have internet in America, you will be left behind. Having access to a smartphone is not enough. It's very difficult to apply for jobs, for children to do their homework.
Most of us take internet access for granted. And to be quite frank with you, I believe everyone in our society should be in a position to take it for granted, because it is so fundamental to our daily lives. The fact that we have over 800,000 San Francisco residents, and we consider ourselves to be the technology capital of the world, and the fact that we still have over 100,000 San Francisco residents without internet access at home, to me is criminal.
Internet service providers are pretty much in a very comfortable space. Mergers have created opportunities for companies to not really need to get all these customers online, so there's not a requirement to actually go after underprivileged people who can't afford this.
The old version of separate but equal here is, well, people can always go to the library. And that's true. People can go to the library. And now people can get a limited amount of data to the extent they can afford it, which is not the same thing as you and me going home and getting on our laptop. And it certainly isn't the same thing from our kids' point of view in terms of school or our point of view when we're looking for a job. The biggest barrier to kind of routine internet access and use is simply affordability. It's one of the reasons why this computer center and a number of others around the city, we have been paying such close attention to the affordable alternatives that people have or are supposed to have. AT&T's so-called access program is offering service at the best speed you could get, up to 10 megs, for $5 to $10. This was something that they negotiated with the FCC as a concession in connection with their DirecTV acquisition 2 years ago. This was the old FCC where the FCC actually used to say, you need to do something for poor people as part of this deal to make $1 billion. So this was AT&T's concession. If we were going to advertise this service, we certainly didn't want to be advertising in neighborhoods where it was not available. So we did a thorough mapping of all of the federal data that was available. And the map basically showed that there was about 60,000 households which didn't have 3 meg service. You may say, what, 3 meg down? Who doesn't have that, right? Well, the answer is about 1/5 of the city.
I'm a retiree. I worked for Ohio Bell, a telephone company, for 32 years. They said fiber internet is coming about 8 years ago. AT&T promised me that. Everybody was, we were so excited about broadband and we're gonna get it. And I got it. It didn't work right. I have to wait and wait and wait. I do my banking on there and it's so slow. I go and record something, but it won't play back immediately, which it should. Sometimes I have to wait up to between 8 and 10 hours. They never told me initially, no matter what equipment I had, it wasn't gonna work because we didn't have broadband in this area. So I'm paying for a service that I'm not getting, that I was promised. They have a program where you don't have to go to Cleveland Clinic to see a doctor. You could talk to your doctor on your tablet, your computer, whatever. I have the insurance, I have the equipment to see the doctor on, but I have no means to get to him. Because of the internet speed, I'm being denied a very good service.
And it was finally this realization like, oh, wonder if AT&T's just not investing in those neighborhoods. And yes, that's exactly what's happening. They're just not investing in these poorer neighborhoods. You can get very slow internet from AT&T, or you can get really expensive, really fast, great internet from Spectrum. Is that really the kind of choice that's reasonable? No, it's because we don't have competition.
Well, once we saw that, then it was easy enough to trace back what had happened. So in 2007, the state legislature had eliminated state regulation. And they did it supposedly so AT&T would go out and build competitive cable systems. AT&T had gone and done exactly what you would have expected. They built their new system called UVerse in places where they thought they could make more money and didn't build it in other places. It was a pretty important policy consequence of the state that nobody knew had happened. Since then, we've done the same research on several other cities. There's a very similar pattern in Detroit, very similar pattern in Dayton, very similar pattern in Toledo. AT&T has discriminated in the deployment of its service to low-income African-American neighborhoods in Cleveland and Detroit, and the FCC has the power to call them to account on it. The FCC can stop them from doing it, but now they're not going to.
AT&T will not give us poor people the top of the line internet. They don't want to be bothered with us. I don't want to move out of Cleveland. I want to stay right here. I shouldn't have to move not to be discriminated against. I'm losing a lot of things that I could have because of it. And it really interrupts your quality of life, the quality of retirement.
The internet has become the platform on which the world works. in Oregon. Fortunately, that was identified as something that we should be talking about by the state's leaders. Oregon has been engaged in public policy planning around telecommunications as a strategic issue for the state for over 25 years. Well, Oregon is a big western state with a relatively small population, yet we are in a fairly strong position regarding broadband availability, adoption, and utilization.
La Grande is nestled in the middle of the Blue Mountains, and it's an amazing, wonderful place to live. With us being in such a rural community, not having the neonatal unit for infants makes it harder, so you have to get flown out. Usually end up having to go to Portland or to Boise to lower the risk of complications. When our daughter Maya was born, things got really scary. My doctor told me if there's problems, she's not breathing, but we're working on her. They started resuscitating her and doing CPR right away while I was laying there. It was absolutely terrifying and a mother's worst nightmare. Maya was born with high drops. She was born with fluid in the chest cavity, and the survival rate for high drops is slim. On average, only 10% usually survive.
We needed help to know what our next steps would be and to know how we were going to treat this, because this is something that we don't see in a rural hospital often. But having telemedicine here and having our robot allowed us to have a neonatal intensive care physician at our shoulder, helping us all along the way.
They did a phenomenal job keeping her breathing, keeping her alive. The telemedicine program is a godsend.
High-speed internet is necessary for everything, like telemedicine. You don't want a blurry picture for the consulting physician. You are talking about a tiny baby's life here. So definitely high-speed internet is a must.
There was fiber run through our region several years ago. I don't believe we would have been able to establish our telemedicine program without fiber running through our community. Just because you live in a rural community doesn't mean you shouldn't have access to urban medicine. And with our broadband connectivity and our state-of-the-art telemedicine devices, we can offer that to anyone.
Our hope in Cleveland is not that we will somehow get AT&T to behave differently. They're not going to do it. They've made really clear they're not going to do it.
If we believe that everyone should have access to high-speed internet in this country, then the government has to get involved where companies are not doing their part.
To our leaders at the FCC, the internet is essential for everybody.
This is a fight worth fighting. There's no time to wait. We are effectively leaving generations behind in our society. I think most of this is happening without people realizing it. Now, most people have busy daily lives. Everyone does. We're raising children. We have multiple jobs. We're doing everything we can. But unless we engage, unless we vote, unless we engage on the issues, quite frankly, it's all of us to blame. And people are railroading us into the future that we do not want.
I feel betrayed because of this internet.
I need internet at home to finish high school, to go to college. I really wish somebody could fix this because right now I only have 2 more years of high school and I can't wait for it.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm going to talk about the healthcare aspects of it. There was a study by the FCC itself, 2016, of mapping public access and healthcare, and they found all kinds of correlation with diabetes and so on, high incidences of health disparities. But yet, the FCC refuted their own study and went on with net neutrality. What can be done about it? I mean, cost of health disparities varies by state. In Connecticut alone, it's about $600–700 million, those avoidable healthcare costs. So can the states take it on by themselves?
I think that's a really solid question. And I think Oregon is a specific example of a state that decided at the state level over almost 2 decades ago that this was going to be an important issue, and not just for the telemedicine, telehealth aspect, but for economic development more broadly. And so applied for grants and utilized some of the stimulus package in 2008 and 2009 to develop their fiber rings in the state. So they were very forward thinking, and a lot of states didn't necessarily have the leaders that could see that far in the future, and we're kind of left now with smaller pockets of funding, and especially when the federal level, the FCC is moving away from, I mean, mouthpiece might be that internet access is an essential utility, but regulatory-wise, we're moving away from overseeing that and creating the pools of money. So I personally think at the federal level, we need to start setting the agenda for 2020 presidential candidates and make this kind of the hot topic issue that it was a couple of years ago with net neutrality, but in a renewed light, in a renewed force. I think it's been waning a little bit.
So Art, this is why we're doing cards. But I'm going to run around. I'm going to pass.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Art from upstate New York. And can you talk about digital inclusion and digital inclusion policies as it relates to this? Because there is a National Digital Inclusion Alliance, and you can find it on the internet. And they're dealing with this, policy of digital inclusion and who's being excluded, and basically what can be done to, address some of these policies that was in your movie.
Right, exactly. And I think, so Angela Seifer, who is in the video, is from NDIA, National Digital Inclusion Alliance, and has been spearheading a lot of the efforts across the country. And I think this is where we're getting into kind of, the words complex came up a lot this morning about the different layers of digital divides in this country, and devices and access to devices, and then classes to learn how to utilize internet access most readily, is sort of, it's all tangled together in the same issue, but it's a little separate from, I think, what a lot of people here today are looking at as the infrastructure layer and the infrastructure component. And the cases in this documentary specifically tapped much more into that fundamental layer, where are companies building, where are they not upgrading, and sort of what gaps we need to fill in terms of the infrastructure development. And the literacy kind of training and classes and access to devices on top of that is, I would say, worthy of a full-length feature film. I will say that in Cleveland, I spent a lot of time with community organizations that are focused on the literacy and device aspect angle. And the threat right now is to the Lifeline program, which the FCC is threatening. So at the federal level, we're seeing a program that has been sort of a stopgap measure for a lot of people who don't have the high-speed fiber connections in their homes. They've been able to get subsidized data plans for cell phones. That program is being threatened now at the federal level. So I think that could be a big connector between the fundamental infrastructure divide and the basic access to devices.
Another question. Is this video available online, and can people access it?
Yes, as of this evening, this 20-minute documentary will be available online on dividinglines.org, and you're welcome to share it as widely as you can and use it. It's for you. And there are 2 more videos on the website that are up there right now that focus on Tennessee as an example of a state that has seen a lot of political shenanigans in the state house that are preventing, you heard earlier this morning, Chattanooga, Tennessee, are preventing fiber providers like EPB in Chattanooga to expand into more rural parts of the state where the demand is incredibly high right now, and there are just no providers that are trying to get there. So, dividinglines.org. Mm-hmm.
I have a final question for you. You've been working in the space for a long time. No, I know you're young, but you have been. And so you did this series of documentaries, and I'm really curious to know, what is the new thing you learned that you didn't know before? What have you learned about the digital equity issue in general that you can share?
Thank you for that question. I think when I was working on this film specifically, I went to more than just San Francisco, Cleveland, and Oregon. I was in a few different, more urban environments, and I realized that, well, I'm definitely not in high school or middle school anymore, but I realized that middle schoolers and high schoolers today have words and terms for people who can't do their homework at home, and one of those is leaners. So they call them the leaners because they're at the library or at the McDonald's or the Starbucks at 10 p.m. at night, 11 p.m., leaning against the building that's locked to pick up the Wi-Fi signal. And in a lot of these communities, especially in urban areas, these leaners are seen as nuisances, and so a lot of these companies are closing their Wi-Fi connections, shutting them down after a certain time in the evening. And so I guess I didn't realize before talking to school children that they see this as an issue too, and it's their friends, and that's, I think that's where the urgency comes from. Yeah. Thank you
So much. We really
Thank you,
appreciate
Deb.
your being here today.